Introduction asterisk. Qin Wen has traversed into the world of Game of Thrones, reincarnating as the formidable Khal Drogo, complete with a Marvel system that allows him to exchange prestige for various treasures from the Marvel Universe. The strength of giants may be immense, but he possesses the abilities of Spider-Man, capable of lifting 20 tons with ease. The Unsullied may be fierce warriors, yet he commands an army of 100,000 cavalry. The ships of Bravos may be impressive, but he knows the true meaning of an aircraft carrier. The walls of Pentos may be thick, but he wields the power of cruise missiles. Dragons that breathe fire? He has access to fighter jets. The Night King? He will transform into the Hulk and leave you crippled. In essence, this is a tale of a protagonist who, equipped with a system, dominates and crushes all within the realm of Game of Thrones. Chapter 1. Rebirth in the world of Game of Thrones. In the vast expanse of the Dothraki Sea, amidst the boundless Khalasar camp, Qin Wen finds himself utterly bewildered. What the hell? I was just watching a show and now I've crossed over. The most incredulous part is that he has landed in the world of Game of Thrones, reincarnated as the legendary warlord, Khal Drogo. Initially, he thought it was merely a prank, but the respectful demeanor of his subordinates and the fearful glances of his slaves left no room for doubt. He had truly entered the realm of Game of Thrones. Qin Wen felt a sense of unease. This world, characterized by low magic, is rife with genuine sorcery, dragons, and the elusive gods who have yet to reveal themselves. It is also a place of chaos and power, with intricate relationships, deceit, and treachery among the Seven Kingdoms, all while the looming threat of the White Walkers persists. The original Khal Drogo met an untimely demise, and his wife, Daenerys, ended up in the arms of another man. How utterly infuriating. He declared, "Since I, Qin Wen, have been reborn as Drogo, I shall not allow such events to unfold. From this day forth, I am Khal Drogo Qin, and I will lead the Dothraki horde to conquer the continent of Westeros. I shall reign supreme in this world of thrones and achieve unparalleled greatness." A spark ignited in his eyes. With his knowledge of the Game of Thrones plot, he felt confident in his ability to overturn the narrative through sheer intellect. Ding! Sensing the host's ambition for conquest, the Marvel system is officially activated. The host can exchange prestige for an array of treasures from the Marvel Universe, including the Super Soldier Serum, Spider-Man's abilities, the Iron Man suit, the Venom symbiote, Hulk's serum, fighter jets, and aircraft carriers, a multitude of advanced technologies to assist in conquering this world. Ding! A novice gift pack has been acquired. Would you like to claim it? Upon hearing the system's notification in his mind, Qin Wen was momentarily stunned before a wave of elation washed over him. "Ha! A novice gift pack? This is my ticket to fortune," he exclaimed decisively. "Open the gift pack." Ding! Congratulations, the host has received a novice gift pack. Perfect edition. 1 bottle of Super Soldier Serum. As the system's voice echoed, a brilliant light enveloped him, revealing a vial of blue Super Soldier Serum in his hand. Incredible! The Super Soldier Serum. With this, who can stand in my way? I will conquer Westeros and claim all the maidens. With determination, Qin Wen gulped down the Super Soldier Serum. The serum rapidly took effect within him. His veins bulged, his face flushed, and beads of sweat poured down as heat radiated from his body. His muscles began to swell at an astonishing rate, and his height increased inch by inch. Even his hair seemed to grow at an alarming pace. It hurts!" Qin Wen cried out in agony as he knelt, pounding the ground with his fists, creating a deep crater in the earth. The entire transformation process lasted a grueling hour. Yet, driven by unwavering resolve, Qin Wen persevered. When he finally stood again, he was transformed into a towering, muscular super soldier, his explosive physique instilling fear in all who beheld him. Damn, the serum transformation process was excruciating. "I'm glad I made it through." He wiped the cold sweat from his brow, still rattled by the ordeal. If it hadn't been for his steadfast will, he might have succumbed to the pain. Thankfully, he had emerged victorious. With newfound strength, he felt capable of shattering mountains. He could even visualize his current attributes within his mind. Host, Qin Wen. Strength, 20. Average human is 1. Knight is 35. Agility, 20. Average human is 1. Knight is 35. Talents. Mastery of all martial arts, expert survivalist, adept at handling various emergencies and wilderness environments. Treasures. 0 can exchange for various Marvel system aids, such as vibranium shields, through prestige. Prestige. 0 earned through increasing notoriety. With my current strength, I feel capable of defeating even a dragon. But can I take on a Night King? After all, he wields magic. Satisfied with his newfound power, Qin Wen reveled in his transformation. Standing nearly 2 meters tall, he exuded an air of formidable authority, a natural-born ruler. Chapter 2. Daenerys Targaryen. At that moment, the tent flap was pushed open, and a youth with bronze skin and an air of wildness strode in. He was bare-chested, adorned only with a painted leather vest, horsehair bindings around his legs, and a bronze belt, wielding a massive curved sword. His name was Kaya, a bloodrider sworn to Khal Drogo, a position reserved for the strongest and most loyal of followers. I bring word from Illyrio Mopatis, the governor of the Free Trade Federation. He has an important gift to present to you. Having begun to adapt to the role of Khal Drogo, Qin Wen responded with authority. Oh, what is this gift? It is a woman, said to be a deposed princess from the continent of Westeros, Daenerys Targaryen, along with her brother Viserys. He wishes to enlist your army to reclaim his throne. Kaya bowed respectfully, intimidated by Qin Wen's commanding presence, lacking the courage to meet his gaze. It is they. Qin Wen narrowed his eyes. As a fan of the series, he was well aware of this plotline. Illyrio Mopatis was known to be a man driven by profit. His willingness to harbor Viserys and Daenerys was not out of benevolence, but rather for the sake of a profitable arrangement. It is evident that as the most formidable Khalasar among the Dothraki, Khal Drogo can undoubtedly afford such a price. Having entirely absorbed Drogo's memories, Qin Wen is acutely aware of the terrifying power he wields. A full army of 100,000, all cavalry. Among them, there are 30,000 elite warriors known as the Bloodriders. This is an army capable of sweeping across the continent of Westeros with terrifying might. Viserys recognizes this potential and willingly relinquishes his sister to marry this so-called barbarian, viewing it as his only hope for reclaiming his kingdom. Inform Illyrio that I desire this woman. I can also accept their terms. Let the entire Khalasar know that Khal Drogo intends to wed a princess of House Targaryen. Qin Wen declared with a smile. Kaya expressed her surprise. Khal, do you truly intend to assist them in reclaiming their throne? We Dothraki have never set foot beyond the Dothraki Sea. Our warriors cannot embark upon ships. Her concerns are valid. The Dothraki, akin to nomadic tribes, live their lives upon horseback. Without their steeds, they feel as though they have lost half their existence, and they harbor an irrational fear of the sea. Were it not for this, given their ferocity and martial prowess, it would be difficult to ascertain whom Westeros might truly belong to. Qin Wen smiled mysteriously. Assist them in reclaiming their throne? No, we Dothraki never partake in unprofitable ventures. On the contrary, I intend to seize this opportunity to march upon King's Landing, allowing our Dothraki cavalry to traverse the 7 kingdoms, vanquishing all who oppose us, and ruling over the western continent of Westeros, compelling the world to bow before the might of the Dothraki. Then, my lord, when shall we commence the assembly of our forces? Kaya, as Drogo's most loyal subordinate, would unconditionally obey his commands. Qin Wen waved his hand dismissively. There is no rush. Currently, there are many Khalasars within the Dothraki Sea. We must first conquer them and unify the entire Dothraki Sea. You shall immediately arrange for the army's journey to the Free Trade Federation. Kaya bowed her head in acknowledgement. Understood. At the domicile of Illyrio in the Free Trade Federation, Daenerys Targaryen had previously believed she would marry Viserys upon reaching adulthood. Since their ancestor, the conqueror Aegon Targaryen, wed his 2 sisters, the Targaryen lineage has upheld a tradition of sibling marriage for centuries. Only thus can we ensure the purity of our bloodline. This was a sentiment Viserys had repeated to her countless times. The blood flowing through House Targaryen is that of kings, the golden blood of the ancient Valyrian race, the proud blood of true dragons. True dragons do not consort with common beasts, and House Targaryen will not mingle their blood with that of inferior races. Yet now, Viserys intends to sell her to the savages of the plains. Indeed, whether on the opposite shores of the narrow sea in Westeros or among the city dwellers of Essos, the Dothraki are synonymous with barbarism and backwardness. They are fundamentally looked down upon, yet paradoxically feared for their martial prowess. With the assistance of her slaves, Daenerys prepared herself and emerged to find Viserys waiting for her in the hall. Illyrio emerged from a nearby corridor, his corpulent form swaying within a loose, fiery red silk robe, each finger adorned with glimmering jewels. She is far too slight. Are you certain Khal Drogo will be fond of such a young girl? Viserys remarked, scrutinizing his sister Daenerys with a hint of concern as he addressed Illyrio. Daenerys is indeed beautiful and possesses an innate air of nobility, yet she is barely 16 years of age. Chapter 3. Daenerys faces provocation. Princess Daenerys, may you receive the blessings of all deities on this auspicious day. Illyrio bowed gracefully to Daenerys before turning to Viserys. She is on the cusp of adulthood. There exists no reason for Khal Drogo of the Horse Lords to disfavor her. Just behold her silvery golden locks and her violet-hued eyes. Without a doubt, she possesses the noble blood of Valyria, and she is the daughter of the late king, the sister of the new king. As Daenerys listened to Illyrio's incessant prattle, a wave of annoyance washed over her. Her brother Viserys and the rotund man extolled her virtues as if they were peddling wares. Simultaneously, she harbored a profound dread of the Khal who was to wed her, having heard tales of their mercilessness and their treatment of women as mere livestock. Let us proceed to meet Khal Drogo. He has already pledged to wed Princess Daenerys, and he awaits our arrival. They boarded Illyrio's opulent litter, making their way to their destination. Throughout the journey, Daenerys remained silent, while Viserys was buoyant, as if a long-held ambition was about to be realized. We need not his entire khalasar. I believe 10,000 men would suffice, Viserys declared, fiddling with the hilt of the borrowed sword. Yet, Daenerys was acutely aware that her brother had never truly studied the art of swordsmanship, nor had he ever taken a life. With 10,000 Dothraki warriors, I could sweep across the 7 kingdoms, and the lords and nobles would rise to follow their true king. The Tyrells, the Greyjoys, and families like mine harbor no fondness for usurpers. The people of Dorne have long awaited my return. They are eager to avenge Princess Elia and her children, not to mention the common folk, who will raise their righteous voices to fight for their king. Upon finishing, he nervously glanced at Illyrio. They will do so, won't they? They are your subjects and hold you dear, Illyrio replied with a congenial smile. In the farms and villages across the realm, men secretly raise their cups in your honor, while women clandestinely stitch banners of the 3-headed dragon, anticipating the day you lead your army across the sea. He shrugged. This is what my followers claim. Daenerys had no followers and lacked insight into the thoughts and actions of those across the narrow sea. Nevertheless, she harbored skepticism towards Illyrio and his honeyed words. Conversely, Viserys nodded earnestly in agreement. I shall slay the usurper, just as he took my brother's life, he asserted. Meanwhile, within a magnificent edifice adorned with 9 towering spires on the bay, a bustling assembly was underway. This was a gift from the governors of Pentos to Khal Drogo. However, the gathering was not solely attended by Drogo's retinue. One could also witness other Dothraki Khals mingling among the guests. The nobility of Pentos, a diverse array of races, included individuals from the fur-clad folk of Lys and several lords from the Summer Islands, their skin as dark as ebony. Qin Wen occupied the foremost seat, flanked by his 3 Blood Alliance guards, Kaya, Kasso, and Kaku. Zogo Kaio, I have heard whispers of your intent to assist 2 frail outsiders in reclaiming their homeland, leading an army across the sea. Do you dare to defy the ancestral edicts of the Dothraki? As the banquet commenced, a towering Dothraki entered the hall, accompanied by a retinue of guards. This man bore a striking resemblance to Qin Wen, adorned with long hair cascading to his waist, embellished with a string of bells, signifying his invincibility in battle. The group exuded a menacing aura, clearly intent on confrontation. Upon recognizing the intruder, Qin Wen's memory swiftly identified him. Morro, what brings you here? The Dothraki Sea is vast, capable of harboring numerous Dothraki khalasars within its depths. Qin Wen estimated that there were no fewer than 20 khals across the plains. Over the years of predatory expansion, Zogo's khalasar had evolved into the mightiest force on the grasslands, boasting an army of 100,000. In contrast, Morro's khalasar, while slightly smaller, still commanded a formidable 70,000 warriors, including 20,000 elite roaring warriors, second only to Zogo. Zogo, we Dothraki have never intermarried with feeble outsiders, nor will we breach tradition to cross the sea for their sake. You jest with the lives of valiant Dothraki warriors. You are unworthy of leading this khalasar. Morro sneered, reprimanding him. Indeed, Zogo is a traitor to all Dothraki. Strip him of his position and cast him out of the Dothraki Sea. The great Morro is the true sovereign. Depart with the outsiders, and leave the khalasar. His Blood Alliance guards and commanders echoed these taunts, their intentions unmistakably antagonistic. Morro had long coveted Zogo's khalasar. Having held the title of Khal for many years, he was a cunning figure. Upon learning of Zogo's plans to wed an outsider, he sought to exploit this opportunity to undermine Zogo and absorb his khalasar, aiming to become the most formidable Khalasar tribe in the Dothraki Sea. It was evident that Morro, amidst a cadre of less astute Dothraki, was a shrewd leader, adept at wielding the notion of righteousness to assert dominion. Morro, are you provoking me? Qin Wen rose from his seat, grasping his ornate curved blade, its hilt inlaid with gold threads and its blade shimmering blue. His imposing stature and muscular physique evoked the image of a poised cheetah, ready to unleash tremendous force at a moment's notice. In comparison to Qin Wen, the seemingly robust Morro appeared quite slender. The atmosphere grew tense as the imminent clash between the two leaders of the Khalasar tribes seemed inevitable. Yet, in truth, no confrontation unfolded. Morro, though fierce and skilled in battle, was not foolish. He understood that in a one-on-one encounter, he would be no match for Drogo, who was a decade younger and in the prime of his youth, while Morro was already entering middle age. Moreover, in recent years, Drogo's Khalasar had relentlessly plundered the resources of other tribes to sustain their warfare, targeting ordinary villages, the Lazarene, and even the Dothraki. It was said that the number of casualties inflicted by Drogo on the cows surpassed a mere handful. Should they engage in battle here, it would undoubtedly be Morro who would perish. Humph. Drogo, we shall see. Morro retreated, casting a malevolent glare at Qin Wen before decisively leading his men away. While he may not match Drogo in brute strength, Morro was confident that through his cunning strategies, he could easily outmaneuver the foolhardy warrior. Among the Dothraki, Morro was one of the few who possessed both shrewdness and a knack for deception. Qin Wen chose to let Morro go for the time being. He refrained from spilling blood at his wedding, not wishing to alarm Daenerys. However, this did not imply that he was merciful. In truth, Qin Wen had already begun devising plans to eliminate Morro with minimal cost after the wedding, intent on wholly absorbing his Khalasar. With Morro's 40,000 cavalry and 8,000 fierce warriors, Qin Wen's Khalasar would undoubtedly become the supreme power of the entire Dothraki Sea, an army of 100,000, unless the Khalasar tribes united against him. Unifying the entirety of the Dothraki was merely a matter of time. His ambitions stretched to the Free Trade Federation of Pentos and the Maritime Lord of Bravos, encompassing the entire continent of Essos. Nevertheless, Qin Wen's foremost desire at present was to marry the Dragon Queen Daenerys. She was still a maiden, ripe for his guidance. At that moment, a sharp voice pierced through the air. The Undulls, the Roiner, and the First Men, along with the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms and the protectors of the realm, were heralded by the arrival of King Viserys III of House Targaryen and his sister, Princess Daenerys of Dragonstone. Their patron, the governor of the free trade city of Pentos, Illyrio Mopatis, had come to visit. Instantly, all eyes gathered at the entrance, drawn to the resplendent figures. Qin Wen also turned his gaze towards the doorway, immediately spotting the strikingly unique and pure Daenerys. She possessed cascading silver-gold hair, a deep purple gown that accentuated her violet eyes, and golden sandals adorning her slender legs. She wore a crown and a golden bracelet set with amethyst, embodying the very essence of a princess. Her brother was a gaunt young man, his hands fidgeting uneasily, and his pale lavender eyes gleamed with a fervent intensity. Although he shared the same hair and eye color as Daenerys, their dispositions diverged significantly. Beside them stood Governor Illyrio, a corpulent figure whose opulent attire could do little to conceal his ample belly. A jovial smile perpetually graced his face. Yet those who truly understood Illyrio's nature recognized him as a cunning and treacherous man, more devious than any merchant. As Qin observed the trio, they were equally scrutinizing him. Viserys' eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Sister, have you seen how long his hair is? When a Dothraki warrior is defeated, they cut their braids as a mark of shame. Khal Drogo has never known defeat. He is like the living incarnation of Aegon the Dragon, and you shall be his queen." "Brother, I do not wish to be a queen," Daenerys replied, casting a glance at Drogo, her expression resembling that of a startled rabbit as she uttered softly, "Viserys, I do not want to marry him. I truly long to return home." "Home?" Viserys sneered, anger lacing his words. He gripped Daenerys' arm tightly, his nails nearly piercing her flesh. "Pray tell, which home are you referring to? Our home has long been taken from us." Daenerys, frightened, began to weep silently, her voice barely a whisper. "I do not know." Viserys scoffed. "Let me enlighten you. We will return with an army. But only if you marry him can we secure that army. If I can obtain that force, I would consent to have all 40,000 of his men take you. Even their horses, if necessary. You should be grateful to merely please Khal Drogo. Dry your tears swiftly, for Illyrio is about to bring him over, and I do not wish for him to see you in such a state." Daenerys turned her head, and indeed, the governor approached, his face beaming with smiles as he bowed deeply while escorting Drogo toward them. She hastily wiped away the tears that had yet to fall. Do as I say, or you know the consequences. Viserys' voice quivered with a hint of anxiety. Chapter 5. 3 Dragon Eggs. Daenerys sat beside Drogo, striving to maintain a smile until the muscles in her face ached, tears betraying her resolve. She endeavored to conceal her weeping, fearful that her brother might witness her distress and awaken the wrath of the sleeping dragon. What are you crying about? Qin suddenly inquired, addressing Daenerys. I am not crying. Daenerys insisted defiantly, though she quickly realized her misstep. You speak the common tongue of Westeros? She asked in astonishment, momentarily forgetting her fear. Is that not a good thing? Qin replied with a smile. No, it is wonderful. I am quite surprised and equally pleased. Daenerys exclaimed. Qin Wen not only speaks fluent common tongue of Westeros, but is also proficient in Valyrian, a revelation that astonishes Daenerys. She had often pondered how she would survive among the foreign tribes where communication was a barrier, a thought that filled her with dread. However, this fear has lessened considerably now. Through their brief exchanges, she gradually realizes that Qin Wen is distinct from other Dothraki. He possesses a unique demeanor, resembling not a barbarian, but rather a well-read and courteous noble knight. Lord Drogo, are you truly willing to send troops to aid my brother's claim to the throne? After a period of conversation, Daenerys musters her courage to pose the question. A knowing expression crosses Qin Wen's face. Send troops? I shall, but not at this moment. Daenerys struggles to comprehend his words, yet upon hearing that he intends to support her brother, her initial trepidation ebbs slightly, alleviating the burden of disappointing her sibling. Within her heart lies a shadow regarding Viserys, intertwined with fear, familial ties, and emotional bonds, for she has relied on her brother since childhood. In the crowd, Viserys grips the hilt of a sword borrowed from Illyrio, seething as he observes Daenerys engaged in merriment with Drogo, their camaraderie palpable. Anger flickers in his pale violet eyes. Viserys is displeased. He resents Daenerys sitting above him, and is further irked that servants consistently prioritize Drogo, his new bride, and other savages before reluctantly offering him the scraps. Yet, apart from his simmering rage, he can do little but sit there, his expression darkening as his pride is repeatedly wounded. When will that man fulfill his promise? He inquires darkly of Illyrio beside him. Do not fret, Illyrio reassures. I assure you that everything has been arranged. Since Drogo has promised you a golden crown, he will certainly keep his word. But when will he deliver? Viserys asks impatiently. That depends on Drogo's disposition, Illyrio replies. After the wedding, Drogo will first take this girl to meet the Khalasar in V's Dothraki. After that, I am sure he will procure what you desire, provided omens indicate favorable conditions for war. Viserys erupts in fury. I care not for the Dothraki omens. How long must that wretched usurper sit upon my throne? I can scarcely wait another moment. Great king, you have waited the better part of your life. What is a few more months, or even years? Illyrio shrugs. Your Majesty, I advise you to exercise patience. The Dothraki are men of their word, but their methods must align with their customs. Those of lower status may beseech Khal to assist, but must never presume to instruct him. At this moment, Ser Mormont, a knight from Westeros, also expresses his agreement. Two fallen souls meeting in a foreign land, they instantly resonate with one another, and Yora swore fealty to Viserys the previous night. Mormont, you would do well to choose your words carefully, otherwise, beware that I may sever your tongue. I am no lowly individual. I am the sovereign of the 7 kingdoms, a true descendant of the dragon, and I shall not bow in submission. Viserys declared with fury, casting his gaze upward at Drogo while unsheathing his sword halfway. Should he dare deceive me, he shall taste the wrath of the awakened sleeping dragon. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Qin Wen clapped his hands, and the drumming, shouts, and revelry ceased abruptly. Rising, Qin Wen assisted Daenerys to her feet, thus commenced the ritual of presenting gifts to the bride. Kaya bestowed upon her a curved arak blade. Kassos gifted a double-curved dragonbone longbow, and Kaku presented a long whip. These were the 3 blood-sworn companions of Qin Wen. Daenerys rose, and, adhering to the instructions imparted by Illyrio, graciously declined the gifts, redirecting them to her husband. Subsequently, Viserys offered Daenerys 3 handmaidens, one to teach her horseback riding, another to instruct her in the Dothraki tongue, and the last to train her in combat. Ser Mormont apologized for his modest gift. Your Highness, this trifle is hardly a worthy token, but as one cast into exile and impoverished, this is all I can afford. With that, he placed a small stack of old books before her, chronicling the history and legends of the 7 kingdoms in the common tongue. A flicker of surprise graced Daenerys' features as she expressed her heartfelt gratitude. Yet Qin Wen cast a scornful glance at Mormont. this old wretch who had once coveted Daenerys in the original tale. Moreover, he was, in truth, an assassin sent by King Robert, tasked with eliminating the last vestiges of House Targaryen. However, Qin Wen was no longer the Drogo of old. Any who dared to lay eyes upon Daenerys with ill intent would meet their demise. Finally, Illyrio presented his gift, 3 dragon eggs. Each egg was distinct in appearance. One was deep green, revealing various bronze spots as it turned. Another was pale with golden stripes. The last was pitch black, adorned with dark red waves and whirlpools. "What is this?" Daenerys inquired cautiously, lifting one to examine it. "These are dragon eggs from the lands east of Ass High," Governor Illyrio explained, fossilized over millennia, yet still resplendent. Chapter 7. Illyrio's ambitions. At that moment, Illyrio sought out Qin Wen privately. "My Lord Drogo, I have matters to discuss with you." Their conversation lasted nearly an hour. Illyrio's singular aim was to borrow troops from Qin Wen to launch an assault on the free trade cities of Pentos. One might wonder why Illyrio, the governor of Pentos, would invite Qin Wen to attack his own city. Would this not be akin to inviting a wolf into the fold, ensnaring oneself? The rationale is quite straightforward. Illyrio's ambitions are boundless. The governance of Pentos is burdened with an excess of governors, no less than a dozen, each a wealthy merchant, driven by insatiable greed and solely concerned with their own interests. During significant assemblies in Pentos, these governors engage in mutual evasion, often deliberating for 10 days, a fortnight, or even half a year, without reaching a decisive conclusion. The administrative efficiency of Pentos is alarmingly low, with various departments embroiled in intrigue and conflict, lacking a unified purpose. Even the nominal prince of Pentos is merely a figurehead, chosen by the governors. In times of disaster or failure in foreign trade, these unfortunate princes are often scapegoated and sacrificed to appease the heavens. Illyrio has grown weary of their insincere pretenses. He aspires to dominate the entire Pentos Free Trade Federation. However, his solitary strength is insufficient for such an ambition. As a free trade federation, Pentos lacks the authority to establish a military, a consequence of their defeat in the war against Bravos, which led to a treaty prohibiting the formation of armed forces. Thus, Pentos exists as a city devoid of military might. Upon hearing Illyrio's grand scheme, even Qin Wen was taken aback. The audacity of Illyrio, wishing to monopolize an entire city, was staggering. Pentos is exceedingly affluent, rivaling even the Lannister family across the narrow sea. Their wealth is formidable. "My lord, Khal Drogo, I implore you to consider my proposal. Should you agree to lend your forces in my endeavor to seize Pentos, I am prepared to offer you 1/10 of the city's annual trade revenue, along with the transfer of a significant portion of its industries to your name. From that moment forth, Pentos will become your domain, a retreat at your leisure," Illyrio proposed. 1/10 of a city's annual income is indeed a substantial offer. Illyrio is truly a cunning merchant. He understands that only by presenting immense benefits can he attract Khal Drogo. His prior support of Viserys and Daenerys was all for this moment. He resembles El Bouet from ancient China, fully aware of the value of rare commodities. 1/10 is too modest. I demand half, Qin Wen asserted, his succinct words striking with a startling intensity, causing Illyrio's countenance to shift. "My lord Khal Drogo, is it not excessive to claim half of the wealth of the Free Trade Federation? All matters are negotiable. How about I offer you 1/5 instead?" Faced with such a colossal profit, even Illyrio dared to negotiate with the ferocious Dothraki. After all, relinquishing half the profit would be akin to flaying his own flesh. 1/3. Otherwise, the discussion is over. Should you dare to bargain further, I shall take your life, Qin Wen declared with an air of dominance, making a concession of his own. He did not wish to press Illyrio too hard at this juncture. After all, capturing Pentos would not be a simple task. Their walls are exceedingly high. And without Illyrio as an insider, coordinating an effortless takeover of the city would be quite the challenge. However, what will happen after the city falls is uncertain. Qin Wen mused with a hint of enigmatic amusement. On the surface, he glared furiously, an aura of ferocity emanating from him, as if he were on the brink of violence. Illyrio was nearly paralyzed with fear. Confronted by Qin Wen's deathly gaze and imposing presence, he promptly recoiled. Although he had once been an assassin, he felt woefully inadequate compared to the likes of Zhao Gakao, a ruthless killer commanding vast armies. Moreover, he was no longer the young assassin he once was. Age had rendered him cunning yet lacking in the martial prowess to match. "Lord Zhao Gakao, let us speak civilly. 1/3 is 1/3. However, I implore you to uphold your promise." Illyrio acquiesced to Qin Wen's demands, his heart bleeding at the thought. A full 1/3 of the Free Trade Federation's fiscal revenue was an astronomical figure. If invested wisely, Ili Liu was confident he could multiply such wealth exponentially. Yet entrusting it to the Dothraki would be akin to inviting disaster. These barbarians valued tangible assets and had little regard for monetary wealth. There is one more thing. I require the finest blacksmiths of Pentos to forge a shield for me, using the best steel available. Qin Wen articulated another straightforward request. Ili Liu had many skilled craftsmen from the distant Westeros continent under his command. Crafting a shield was a trivial task for him, merely a matter of words. Rest assured, Lord Zhaoga, I will mobilize the city's finest blacksmiths to create for you the sturdiest shield on the entire Essos continent. After concluding his statement, Ili Liu took his leave. He needed to return promptly to make preparations and arrange a date with Zhaoga Khal. Watching Ili Liu depart, Qin Wen scoffed, muttering to himself, "Promises are worthless. I am not the Zhaoga of old. 1/3 of annual income is far too meager. I demand all of Pentos' revenues. Once I conquer the Free Trade Federation of Pentos, that rotund fool shall serve me dutifully. Should he be wise, I may return his holdings. If not, I shall appoint a more astute individual as the new governor." Chapter 8. The Conquest of Daenerys. Upon returning to the wedding feast, Daenerys grew anxious as she awaited Zhaoga Khal's arrival, which was delayed. Her brother, Viserys, once again resorted to threats, instilling fear within her. Fortunately, Zhaoga finally returned just as the sun began to set. By this time, the wedding festivities were nearing their conclusion. With only one final matter left to address, all eyes upon them, Qin Wen gently approached Daenerys, lifting her petite and delicate form effortlessly into his arms. "I've waited so long, my Khaleesi," he whispered tenderly in her ear. Enveloped in his embrace, Daenerys felt no resistance. Instead, a long-lost sense of safety washed over her. "As long as you are back, I feared you might abandon me. If that were to happen, Viserys would surely kill me." At her words, Qin Wen cast a cold glance at Viserys lurking in the corner, a flicker of menace in his eyes. "If your brother dares to threaten you again, I shall take his life." With that, he mounted his magnificent red steed, carrying Daenerys along as they sped eastward, leaving all behind. They galloped for a considerable distance until they were alone, the world behind them vanishing. Qin Wen discovered a winding river, its banks adorned with lush greenery. The wild grasses of the Dothraki Sea often towered over a meter, cloaking one entirely. The surroundings were silent, save for the two of them by the riverside. Although Daenerys had been forewarned of Dothraki customs, a wave of shyness and fear still enveloped her. "Fear not. You are my Khaleesi. No one shall harm you. You will forever be my woman," Qin Wen reassured her softly at her ear. A tremor coursed through Daenerys, yet she recognized she could not refuse. Moreover, she found herself not disliking Drogo, for he bore himself like a noble gentleman, displaying kindness and thoughtfulness rather than savagery. When Daenerys awoke, the sun was high in the sky, its brilliant rays illuminating her exquisite visage, nearly blinding her. "My Khaleesi, you are awake," came a deep, familiar male voice. As she opened her eyes, she realized she lay nestled in Qin Wen's embrace, a blush creeping across her cheeks as she struggled to meet his gaze. "Drogo, where are we going?" After a moment to gather her courage, she inquired. She noticed they were advancing steadily with an endless army of cavalry. Qin Wen smiled. "We are headed to war." Daenerys blinked in surprise. "War? Against whom?" Qin Wen merely smiled, remaining silent. At that moment, Jorah Mormont and Viserys, trailing behind, caught up with them. Qin Wen felt no fondness for these two shadows, his expression impassive as he asked, "What do you want?" Under Qin Wen's penetrating gaze, Viserys felt a surge of fear, yet summoned the courage to speak for the sake of his claim to the throne. "Drogo, I offer my sister to you in marriage, seeking your aid to reclaim my kingdom. Until you help me seize the throne, I shall remain by your side, going nowhere." Jorah Mormont clasped his fists over his heart and offered a slight salute to Qin Wen. "My lord Drogo, I beseech you to permit me to remain by the side of His Majesty Viserys. He requires knights to pledge their fealty and safeguard his well-being." "Very well, but I must warn you, do not entertain any thoughts regarding Daenerys, particularly you, Viserys. Do not presume that your status as Daenerys' brother grants you the right to threaten or intimidate her. Should I discover any such intentions, I shall personally sever your head from your shoulders." Qin Wen's gaze swept over Viserys and Jorah Mormont, his words laced with a hint of menace. Jorah felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if Qin Wen could penetrate the depths of his soul and unveil his every secret, leaving him with an uncanny sensation akin to encountering a specter. What jest was this? Was Drogo some sort of sorcerer? Viserys, torn between terror and fury, feared Drogo's formidable power, yet dared not voice his indignation. His rage was further ignited by the thought that Daenerys had likely confided in Drogo. How dare she? How could she awaken the wrath of the sleeping dragon? Chapter 9. The treacherous Morro across the Sea of Dothraki. A vast cavalry force had galloped for nearly 7 days. At the sound of a sharp whistle, the troops began to halt and set up camp by a river. This was a colossal army of 100,000 strong. A veritable torrent of steel capable of obliterating anything that stood in their path. The Lorne River served as a boundary. To the east lay the Sea of Dothraki, while to the west resided the Free Cities. According to the original plan, Khalasar was to journey eastward to the holy city of Viz Dothrak. However, Qin Wen abruptly altered course, directing the troops to the territories of another Khalasar. At this moment, less than 100 kilometers ahead lay the domain of a rival Khal, who bore a grudge against Qin Wen. Indeed, it was the very Morro Khal who had wreaked havoc at Qin Wen's wedding feast. In the spirit of reciprocity, Qin Wen felt the urge to retaliate, and thus, as soon as the wedding festivities concluded, he swiftly led his forces towards this location, intent on assaulting Morro Khal's Khalasar. This decision left his 3 blood riders in astonishment. Are we not heading to the holy city? Helicarrier inquired, perplexed. No, Qin Wen replied. Morro Khal dares to provoke me and insult my authority. We shall annihilate them. In Khalasar, a Khal's word was law, and whatever demands he issued were to be followed unconditionally. Hence, Kaya and the other blood riders posed no further questions. They vowed to defend Drogo to the death, unwavering even in the face of peril. However, embarking on a war necessitated careful consideration of various facets, foremost among them being pre-war mobilization. Of the 100,000 strong force at Qin Wen's command, aside from the 30,000 elite roaring warriors he personally led, the remaining 70,000 were under the command of his subordinates. These brigands not only command formidable forces, but also stand as competitors to KO. Each brigand possesses the right to challenge KO, should they be victorious. They shall ascend as the new KO. Furthermore, upon the demise of a KO from the Karasa, the next KO emerges from among their ranks. Summon the brigands to my tent. I have matters to discuss. Qin Wen commanded. Soon, 5 brigands arrived at Qin Wen's tent. KO, what is it that you seek from us? One robust brigand, with skin as dark as night, boldly inquired. The Dothraki are not burdened by excessive formalities. Even in the presence of Qin Wen, who holds the title of KO, they exhibited little reverence. Qin Wen replied, Morocco dared to provoke me and showed disrespect towards my Jiga. This time, I shall annihilate his Karasa and sever his head. At this proclamation, astonishment rippled through the assembly. The other brigands began to voice their opinions in a cacophony of chatter. Jiga KO? So you intend for us to forcefully alter our course into the territory of another Karasa for the sake of plunder? One questioned. This land is already under Morocco's dominion, and their forces are hardly inferior to ours. Should we engage in war with them, our losses would be substantial. Indeed, it would be wiser for us to continue raiding the weaker Karasas, strengthening ourselves before confronting Morocco, another suggested. Morocco is a formidable opponent. He is the demon of the Dothraki. Before I became a brigand, he was already the most powerful KO upon the Dothraki Sea. To wage war against him now would surely leave us weakened. The brigands expressed their reluctance to confront Morocco as Karasa, for his reputation as a fearsome adversary was well known throughout the Dothraki Sea. Many tribes and cows, once mightier than Morocco as Karasa, had met their demise at his hands. War against such a tyrant would come at a great cost. Qin Wen listened to their words with an impassive expression, remaining silent, for he noticed the absence of 2 brigands among them. With an army of 70,000, commanded by 7 brigands, each leading 10,000 troops, only 5 had come to discuss matters. Where are the other 2 brigands? He wondered. Such an important affair warranted their presence. Their absence was a direct affront to his authority as KO. It appeared not all of Jiga's brigands were loyal to him. Qin Wen scoffed. Where are Girtai and Amor? Summon them to me. The Blood Oath warrior, Kaya, standing behind Qin Wen, promptly exited to call upon the remaining brigands. However, after a considerable wait, Kaya returned alone, empty-handed. My blood of blood, Girtai and Amor are nowhere to be found, and they have absconded with 30,000 troops. Damn it! How could this happen? Qin Wen erupted, rising from his seat in a fit of rage. Kaya lowered his head. My blood of blood, these 2 brigands have betrayed you. They took a portion of our brethren to join Morocco on the very night of your wedding. Cursed be it. Why would this wretched creature deliberately disrupt my wedding banquet and dare to confront me so brazenly? It turns out, while I was distracted, he stealthily approached my Khalasar. This old beast is indeed treacherous. Qin Wen finally comprehended the situation. Chapter 10. The Gathering of Forces Morro. No wonder he is referred to as the demon of the Dothraki. Not only does he possess extraordinary martial prowess, but he is also adept in the art of intrigue. Without a sound, he managed to sway 2 of Qin Wen's warriors to his side and absconded with 30,000 of his troops. Qin Wen's countenance darkened. Having lost 30,000 from his 100,000 strong, he was left with only 70,000, while Morro's forces swelled to a formidable 100,000. The balance of power had shifted, making the impending conflict all the more daunting. Casting a grim gaze upon the other 5 warriors in the tent, Qin Wen suspected that Morro had approached each of them. Though they had not followed suit, who could ascertain if any among them harbored treachery? Arshan, did Morro approach you? Arshan, the robust and dark-skinned warrior, paled at Qin Wen's inquiry and quickly bowed, saying, Khal Drogo, Morro indeed sought me out, but I rebuffed him. Everyone knows this scoundrel harbors malicious intent, and I have no desire to serve under him. Indeed, Khal Drogo, we steadfastly support your claim as the call of the Khalasar, demonstrating our unwavering loyalty. Jeltai and Amor, those traitorous curs, dared to betray the Khalasar. I shall not let them escape justice. Khal, let us engage Morro in battle. I yearn to personally sever his head. The warriors fervently pledged their loyalty to Qin Wen, acutely aware of his fury. They understood that incurring his wrath could easily lead to their demise. Morro has secretly approached you, yet none of you deemed it necessary to inform me. You shall all face retribution. However, that will await the conclusion of this war. Assemble the troops immediately. I shall take the heads of those 2 traitors and feed them to the dogs. Qin Wen was genuinely incensed, having just traversed into this new realm. He struggled to grasp the complexities of commanding an army. He had assumed that all Dothraki were merely brawny and simple-minded, never considering that betrayal could lurk within his ranks. Yet reality had delivered a harsh lesson. The Dothraki were not only astute, but remarkably clever. With an entire force of 100,000, the sheer number was overwhelming. A line of soldiers stretched infinitely, and the limitations of human perception rendered it impossible for Qin Wen alone to discern the movements of the entire army. 30,000 had vanished without a trace, and only now did he uncover this disconcerting reality. The transmission of such news had been woefully slow. This realization illuminated the deficiencies within his military structure, necessitating reform. Fortuitously, having been born on Earth, Qin Wen possessed some understanding of modern military systems, and he resolved to incorporate this knowledge into his own forces. Witnessing Khal Drogo's ire, the 5 warriors felt an acute sense of trepidation. Daring not to exhale a single breath, Khal Drogo's anger was truly formidable. Moreover, the 3 Blood Alliance guards behind him were also casting menacing glances at the 5 of them, their eyes filled with fury, as if ready to draw their blades at the slightest provocation. For the Blood Alliance guards, the anger of Khal only intensified their own. Anyone who dared to offend Khal would meet a grim fate. The atmosphere in the tent became palpably tense. Let us go outside, gather the troops. I wish to address my men, Qin Wen declared, his visage dark and foreboding, as he stepped out of the tent, followed closely by the others. After considerable effort, the 5 bandit leaders managed to assemble the remaining 40,000 troops, a formidable sea of black-clad warriors, all mounted on warhorses and arrayed before Qin Wen. At the forefront were the 30,000 roaring warriors personally led by Qin Wen, the most elite fighters under his command, renowned throughout Karassa, each a seasoned veteran of countless battles. It would not be an exaggeration to assert that with this 30,000 alone, Qin Wen could sweep aside any Karassa tribe on the plains. Of course, this did not apply to the current Morro Khal, as the strengths of the 2 factions were nearly on par. At this moment, Viserion and Jorah Mormont had also learned of the impending conflict between Drogo Khal and Morro Khal. Confronted by the imposing sight of 70,000 soldiers, Viserion's eyes glimmered with fervor as he whispered, Mormont, do you see? This is the army of the Dothraki, a veritable torrent of iron. I assure you, no army in the 7 kingdoms can compare. They have grown too complacent, have they not? The thought of one day leading such a force to reclaim our lands convinces me that my choice is sound. Marrying Dany to Drogo was indeed the wisest decision, for they are invincible in battle. Jorah Mormont nodded in agreement. You speak true, Your Grace. Drogo Khal's army is undeniably magnificent, and they possess the capability to assist you in capturing King's Landing. Hearing Jorah Mormont's flattery, Viserion's pride swelled even further. If Drogo understands his position, once I ascend the throne, I may very well appoint him as a Dothraki protector or even elevate him as a member of the Kingsguard. Chapter 11. Ensnared in the siege, the clash between the 2 large Karassa factions, involving nearly 200,000 combatants, unleashed a terrifying force of destruction. Qin Wen understood the gravity of the situation and knew he could not afford to be careless. He rode forth on a blood-red warhorse, towering above ordinary steeds. Akin to the famed horses of earth, galloping at full speed, its body glistening with sweat like blood. All the sons of Karasa, the Morro Cow Karasa, were now within striking distance. He had taken away 3,000 of our brothers, caused 2 bandits to betray me, and even dared to provoke my authority during my wedding feast with Drogo. Tell me, what should I do? Qin Wen shouted, his voice resonating louder than that of tens of thousands. To the death, we shall follow Cow. Kill. The Blood Alliance guard, Kaya, immediately drew his curved blade, raising his right hand high, and bellowed in fury, kill, kill, kill. In an instant, a formidable chorus of 70,000 cavalry raised their voices in a thunderous roar, shaking the very heavens as if to disperse the clouds. The atmosphere became electrified, and countless soldiers were swept up by Qin Wen's fervor, each one invigorated, howling with fervent anticipation to engage in battle against Morro. Now, all shall heed my command. The army will charge forth at full speed, and we must reach Morro's tribe within the hour. I, Drogo, vow to annihilate Morro, slay his soldiers, and seize every horse and woman from their Kalesa. Qin Wen understood that to incite the warriors to fight with fervor, he must present them with substantial rewards. Only through enticing incentives could he drive them to risk their lives. For the Dothraki, horses and women represented the pinnacle of wealth. Indeed, upon hearing his words, the 70,000 troops erupted in fervor. The warriors unsheathed their curved blades, raising them aloft, and in the Dothraki tongue, they roared with fury. With a resounding clash, all Dothraki warriors, emboldened as if infused with vitality, surged with unparalleled zeal, even more fervent than before. Charge forth, kill. Qin Wen, mounted upon his steed named Blood of the Empire, led the charge, followed closely by 3 Bloodsworn, together forming an unyielding spearhead as they propelled the entire army forward. Trailing behind were 30,000 roaring warriors, the elite of Drogo Qin's forces, seasoned veterans who had survived countless battles, now loyal to Drogo Qin. Lastly, there were 40,000 ordinary soldiers led by 5 captains. These men had once been warriors of various small tribes, forcibly gathered into a single army after Drogo had vanquished their Kalesa. Their loyalty was average, yet their sheer numbers rendered them formidable. What does it mean for 70,000 cavalry to gallop at full speed? The thunderous sound of iron hooves pounding the ground echoed like rolling thunder. Along their path, every flower, blade of grass, and tree was trampled, the earth appearing as if it had been plowed, with turf scattered and torn as a wide, muddy trail was carved across the plains. 100 miles, under the full-speed charge of the warhorses, could be traversed in the blink of an eye. Qin Wen had no intention of dragging out the confrontation with Morro. He sought a direct clash, for regardless of any schemes or treachery, absolute strength would leave only a path to annihilation. This battle would undoubtedly be brutal. For Daenerys' safety, Qin Wen left her behind in the camp. Moreover, he specifically assembled an elite guard of 50 roaring warriors to ensure her protection. Without his express command, no one was permitted to approach Daenerys, not even Viserys. Those who dared to intrude would face merciless execution. Qin Wen's measures were designed to prevent Viserys from harassing Daenerys and to guard against Jorah Mormont's potential assassination attempt on her life. The situation on the continent of Westeros remains somewhat unclear to Qin Wen. He can only infer from the timeline etched in his memory that King Robert has likely summoned Eddard Stark from the north and is now returning to King's Landing as his sovereign hand. The equestrian prowess of the Dothraki is no jest. Qin Wen and his contingent reached the vicinity of the Khalasar of Morocco in merely about an hour. Gazing ahead, he beheld a vast encampment of tents sprawling across the grasslands several kilometers away, teeming with people, soldiers, as well as numerous elders and children. This was the stronghold of Morocco. With Qin Wen leading an army of 70,000, it was implausible that Morocco remained oblivious. On the contrary, his scouts should have long detected their approach. Yet, throughout their journey, no cavalry had emerged to impede their advance, evoking a sense of puzzlement. The camp lay eerily silent, devoid of sentry riders. With only the presence of the elderly and children, it was possible that Morocco's main forces were not present. Could it be that a traitor among them had forewarned him of their intent to assault his stronghold? As Qin Wen surveyed the stillness around him, a frown creased his brow, and he sensed the faint aroma of conspiracy. Just as his vigilance reached a peak, the air erupted with a thunderous battle cry. Kill. The ground trembled violently underfoot, the sound of countless iron steeds trampling the earth heralding the approach of a vast cavalry. The battle cries resonated from all directions. Qin Wen and his forces found themselves encircled. Chapter 12. The Outbreak of War. Kill. The sudden emergence of a substantial enemy force took everyone by surprise. Morro had abandoned his stronghold, using the elderly and children as bait to lure Qin Wen into a trap, aiming to annihilate his entire army in one fell swoop. The rumble of Morro's forces surged forth, their numbers far exceeding 100,000. A tide of cavalry surged forth, a sight so formidable that an ordinary person might faint in sheer terror at such an overwhelming spectacle. In the face of such a vast multitude, individual strength seemed utterly insignificant. Qin Wen's eyes sparkled with intensity, remaining silent. The 30,000 elite warriors stood equally still, their expressions solemn, their gaze fixed unwaveringly upon their leader, the Dothraki. Only the multitude of ordinary soldiers began to stir slightly, apprehensive in the presence of such overwhelming adversaries. Countless enemy cavalry circled around the 70,000 troops, tightening the encirclement layer by layer, akin to wrapping dumplings. Morro's army was beyond imagination. Qin Wen had anticipated no more than 100,000 forces at most. However, it now appears that their numbers are at least double that of Qin Wen. In other words, they have gathered an army exceeding 150,000 strong. Such a formidable display of power. Morro, in his relentless pursuit to annihilate Qin Wen's Khalasar, has clearly orchestrated this with great cunning. It is uncertain how much effort, manpower, and resources he has expended, and it is highly likely that he has even allied with other Khalasar tribes to assemble such a terrifyingly vast army, intent on besieging Qin Wen's forces. The two armies stand in confrontation on the boundless grassland, a great battle poised to erupt, with Qin Wen evidently at a disadvantage. He refrains from acting recklessly, choosing instead to fix his gaze ahead. Soon, he spots dozens of figures riding on horseback. Leading them is none other than Morro, accompanied by 4 Blood Alliance guards. Furthermore, there are over 10 brigands and a significant number of leaders from other tribal factions. Haha, Drogo, you have indeed been outwitted. I have heard you are the most valiant Kaio of the Dothraki Sea, but I, Morro, contest that. I have amassed an army of 150,000, and this place shall be your grave. Your women and steeds will all belong to me. Morro declares with arrogant derision as he approaches the front lines of the two armies, his tone dripping with hubris. Qin Wen responds indifferently, Humph, Morro, you cunning beast. You have meticulously laid such a trap to lure me in. You fear that my Khalasar will eventually consume you, so you strike first, allying with other Khalasars against me. Once I am dead, there will be no one in the Dothraki Sea to rival you. You wish to be the sovereign, do you not? Upon hearing Qin Wen's words, Morro's expression shifts, for he knows them to be true. He harbors a profound fear of Qin Wen, for he cannot allow any power in the Dothraki Sea to challenge his supremacy. Morro aims to be the undisputed king of the Dothraki Sea. Drogo's Khalasar stands as the sole impediment to his dominance. Drogo, I did not expect you to possess some wit. But what does it matter if you are aware of it? Today, you are undoubtedly destined to perish. My forces outnumber you 2 to 1. Your 70,000 warriors shall not return alive today. Morro boasts with triumphant laughter. Qin Wen coldly scoffs, is that so? How could your disorganized throng of over 100,000 possibly compare to my roaring warriors? Each of my brothers is worth 10 of yours. Annihilating you will be as effortless as mowing grass. I, Drogo, vow to sever your head from your shoulders. With that, Qin Wen hesitates no longer. Unleashing a furious roar, all brothers, heed my command, obliterate them, break through the encirclement. Kill, kill, kill. Behind Qin Wen, a thunderous battle cry erupts. All the warriors under Drogo's command draw their curved blades without hesitation and charge forward on horseback. There is no retreat. It is a fight to the death. Thunderous sounds resonate through the air. The earth trembles, and a torrent of steel surges forth, a shocking aura of slaughter rising to the heavens, darkening the sky and heralding the onset of this bloody battle. Witnessing Qin Wen initiate the charge, Morro's lips curled into a disdainful smirk as he too issued commands. Brave warriors of the Dothraki Alliance, unsheathe your curved blades and slay Zargo and his entire army. We are the mightiest Khalasar upon the seas of Dothraki. Charge forth. Annihilate them. Kill, 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 kill. The deafening cries of slaughter erupted simultaneously from both sides, as 200,000 soldiers clashed violently. Human life became exceedingly insignificant in the throes of war. In the instant the two armies engaged, countless soldiers lost their heads and limbs, tumbling from their steeds, only to be crushed into dust beneath the iron hooves of the horses. The scene was grotesquely bloody and brutal. In war, there is no mercy, no second chances. Life is singular. Either you perish or I do. Kill. Qin Wen, mounted upon his steed of imperial blood, surged to the forefront. Kaya, Casso, and Kaku, his 3 Blood Alliance guards, followed closely, dedicated to shielding Qin Wen from both overt and covert threats. His safety was their paramount duty. 30,000 roaring warriors trailed behind them, like a colossal spear thrusting fiercely into the ranks of the Morro alliance. The spearhead relentlessly cleaved down the enemies before them, striving to tear through the encirclement. With every swing of his enormous Dothraki curved blade, Qin Wen beheaded foes with terrifying ease. No adversary could withstand his might. Those soldiers from the alliance charging towards him often met their end before they could even close the distance, cleaved in twain along with their steeds and weapons. Their deaths grotesquely tragic. In less than a minute, he had cleared dozens of soldiers obstructing his path. Yet, in the next heartbeat, more foes surged forth. The enemy was overwhelming, seemingly endless. Chapter 13, Blood-Soaked Battle. Kill. Qin Wen resembled an unyielding machine of slaughter, wielding his curved blade with the momentum of his steed, striking again and again as he carved a path through the Morro forces, as if traversing an uninhabited realm. The bodies of the slain enemies piled high beneath him. No one could withstand his furious onslaught. The ferocity of his killing spree was chilling. His 3 Blood Alliance guards trailed closely behind, dispatching those soldiers he overlooked and thwarting attempts to ambush him. Bathed in blood, they fought alongside Qin Wen, unwavering even as they penetrated deeper into enemy territory. Their bodies were stained crimson with the blood and remnants of the fallen, rendering them a ghastly sight. The 30,000 roaring warriors, too, slashed through the enemy until their hands grew weary, carving a significant swath of flesh from the Morro alliance. A multitude of thick encirclements was torn apart in an instant. The commander Morocco, observing the battlefield from a small hilltop, was struck with dismay at this sight. Curse it, what are our alliance soldiers doing? With a number twice that of the enemy, such a formidable advantage, yet they have allowed several layers of encirclement to be breached. It seems they cannot halt the escape of that scoundrel Zorge. One of the traitorous soldiers behind him spoke up. Morocco, the issue lies primarily with Zorge's ferocity. Leading an army of 30,000 roaring warriors, he is invincible in battle. Our ordinary soldiers find it exceedingly difficult to withstand him. If this continues, he will easily break through the siege and flee. This soldier was Arzhan, a defector from Zorge, fully aware of the terrifying power Zorge possessed. Initially, he had confidence in facing Zorge, but today's combat revealed a terrifying intensity that sent shivers down his spine. With a single strike, Zorge could cleave both man and mount in two, even hurling them aside. Even when besieged by dozens of alliance warriors, he remained composed, dispatching them one by one. As the charge progressed, he had not retreated an inch. Such a monstrous being, his strength seemed limitless, impervious to harm or death. In a fit of frustration, Morocco turned. What do you propose we do? If Zorge and his 30,000 roaring warriors manage to escape, all my efforts to assemble this alliance will become a mere jest. If given the chance, he will surely return with a vengeance. Arzhan replied, Morocco, we must personally lead our roaring warriors to encircle Zorge, overwhelming him with sheer numbers. No matter how strong an individual may be, their strength is ultimately finite. Morocco waved his hand dismissively. Very well, Arzhan, you shall take my place in battle. You and Amor are the strongest among the alliance. I will entrust you with our 40,000 roaring warriors to intercept Zorge. You must ensure his death. Arshan's expression shifted dramatically. He wished to slap himself for his folly. To be sent against Zorge was akin to courting death. Having already betrayed Zorge, he found himself on the latter's death list. Engaging Zorge in combat would undoubtedly lead to a dire fate, likely being hunted down by the wrathful Zorge. What's this, Arzhan? Are you unwilling? I can offer you a great incentive. Should you slay Zorge, you shall become the new Khal of Karassa. I will not annex your people. All I ask is your allegiance to the alliance. Morocco dangled a grand bait before Arzhan. Indeed, a glimmer of greed flickered in Arshan's eyes. The Dothraki possessed little cunning. He failed to perceive Morocco's manipulation, his vision clouded by the allure of the Khal position. Becoming the Khal of Karassa was a dream cherished by every warrior. Do not fear your inability to defeat Zorge, Morocco assured. I will command our forces to loosen the encirclement, allowing Zorge to breach it, while we ensnare his 30,000 roaring warriors outside. Then, your mission is to employ a strategy of attrition to exhaust Drogo and his 3 Blood Alliance guards. Once Drogo falls, his army will lose heart and will no longer be our adversary. Morro proclaimed with great satisfaction regarding his plan. He had discerned that Drogo was merely a reckless youth, charging forward without regard for his troops behind him. This played perfectly into Morro's scheme. By eliminating Drogo, He would secure victory in this war. Yes, Morro, I shall hasten to slay Drogo. Arshan, upon receiving Morro's command, brimmed with confidence. Indeed, even if Zhiji's individual strength were formidable, what could it achieve against a sea of foes? Eventually, his power would be depleted, and that would herald his demise. Together with his close companion Amor, they mounted their steeds and swiftly commanded the 40,000 roaring warriors that Morro had painstakingly assembled to join the fray. Morro was indeed a cunning fox. Despite possessing 40,000 elite warriors, he refrained from deploying them, seeking instead to rely on a multitude of ordinary allied soldiers to wear Drogo down. Once Zhiji's forces were sufficiently exhausted, he would unleash the 40,000 roaring warriors to decisively determine the outcome. Thunderous hooves. Under the leadership of the two marauders, over 40,000 Dothraki cavalry surged forward, joining the battle in an overwhelming tide. Meanwhile, the allied soldiers encircling Drogo received orders to create a gap in their formation, attempting to lure him into their trap. At that moment, Qin Wen's 3 Blood Alliance guards also sensed that something was amiss. They observed that Drogo, consumed by rage, was being lured into yet another encirclement by the enemy. Our blood, we cannot charge in further. Ahead lies a trap. Kaya urgently rushed to Qin Wen's side to warn him. A trap? Qin Wen, indeed blinded by rage, suddenly grasped the situation upon Kaya's alert. Oh, so Morro intends to use a strategy of attrition to eliminate me. Once I enter the encirclement, he will swiftly block the entrance, leaving our warriors outside while countless elite foes await within. How despicable. Qin Wen acknowledged his lack of experience. This was a lesson learned the hard way. He realized he must seek a strategist to devise plans for him. He may be an indomitable warrior, but he was not yet a competent commander of vast armies. System. Is there any way for me to win this war? Qin Wen suddenly remembered the existence of the system. The system responded in a voice tinged with resentment. Host. You have finally thought of me. Of course, there is a way. Chapter 14. The Gatling gun spitting blue flames. The system shop, where fairness prevails, allows the host to purchase powerful treasures using reputation points. The system declared. Oh, it suddenly dawned on me that there is a system shop. Qin Wen blushed slightly, realizing that in the past few days, he had been indulging in revelry, focusing on his pursuits with Daenerys, and had entirely forgotten about this matter. How much reputation do I currently possess? System. Reputation is acquired by the host through establishing esteem among subordinates. The host has recently motivated the troops before battle, leading by example and courageously engaging the enemy, which has greatly inspired morale, thus earning a total of 10,000 points of reputation. Qin inquired, is it merely 10,000 points? Why so few? Why did you not mention this earlier? System. 10,000 points is substantial, especially considering the relatively naive nature of the Dothraki. To attain greater reputation, you must win this war. Qin asked, well then, what can I purchase with 10,000 reputation points? System. The system has already filtered treasures within the range of your reputation. Natasha's paralysis pistol, capable of stunning an adult African elephant with its maximum power. Hawkeye's alloy recurved bow, equipped with specially designed arrows featuring auto-tracking and explosive capabilities. The Green Goblin's pumpkin grenade, immensely powerful, capable of obliterating anything within a 3 square meter radius. The Gatling gun spitting blue flames with a staggering 100,000 rounds. A war machine that is unrivaled. It is a worthy acquisition. There are 4 treasures, all below the threshold of 10,000 reputation points. Qin gazed at them with intense desire. By heavens, these are exquisite items. But which one to choose? The Black Widow's paralysis electric pistol, a veritable tool for ambushes, would incapacitate anyone in an instant. Yet, in the context of widespread warfare, it may not be as effective as the hefty blade in Qin's possession. Hawkeye's alloy recurved bow seems promising, with arrows that automatically track their target. If within sufficient range, Qin is confident he could take down that cowardly Morro, who hides behind his troops. However, it would not significantly influence the battlefield. As for the Green Goblin's pumpkin grenade, its power is indeed formidable. A single grenade could annihilate even a mass of steel, leaving no trace behind. It is best suited for close-quarters combat. Still, it is a consumable item, and parting with 10,000 reputation points for a one-time use feels too extravagant for Qin. Ultimately, having faced a plethora of treasures he could not utilize, he resolved to select the Gatling gun with its blue flames, 100,000 rounds sufficient to keep these fools at bay. With determination, Qin made his choice. System. As you wish, enjoy your shopping experience. as the 10,000 reputation points were swiftly deducted from his account. Qin felt the weight of the enormous Gatling gun in his hands. Behind him hung an intricate array of bullet chains. Goodness, fortunate am I to possess the physique akin to that of Captain America. Carrying several hundred pounds is no burden at all. For an ordinary person, this weapon would surely bend them over. Qin gripped the handle of the Gatling gun with one hand, while the other pressed the trigger, leaping directly from his steed. His attire appeared utterly incongruous amidst the battlefield, presenting a rather comical sight. Imagine, on an ancient battleground filled with nomadic warriors, a figure wielding modern firearms emerges. The spectacle would undoubtedly be bizarre. In fact, even the Three Blood Alliance knights were bewildered. They could not comprehend why Qin Wen had forsaken his steed, nor could they fathom the sudden appearance of peculiar objects on his person. Blood of my blood, return to your horse at once. Danger lurks. The three knights hastily galloped towards Qin Wen. Even Morro, who was observing from a small hillside, was perplexed. He had no inkling of Qin Wen's intentions. How could he dare dismount during such a fierce engagement? Was he courting death? Yet, just then, Qin Wen erupted in laughter. Damnable fools, behold the supremacy of modern weaponry. In a mere instant, he squeezed the trigger. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. The song of death resonated. A torrential deluge of bullets cascaded forth, akin to a relentless downpour, showering the battlefield without restraint. The sheer kinetic force of the projectiles instantaneously rendered hundreds, if not thousands, of cavalrymen limbless. Horses struck by bullets, along with their riders, soared into the air before crashing heavily to the ground. Before the survivors could rise, they were crushed into a bloody pulp beneath the weight of more fallen steeds. The battlefield was suddenly filled with heart-wrenching cries of anguish. All the cavalrymen charging towards Qin Wen were felled en masse, leaving a vast swath of devastation in their wake. In the presence of a Gatling gun, the more adversaries there were, the greater the devastation. No aim was required. A mere sweeping motion could annihilate a multitude of foes. Qin Wen had truly transformed into the harbinger of death upon the battlefield. With the strength of a single man, he stood against an army of tens of thousands. Chapter 15. The movements of King's Landing. Meanwhile, as Qin Wen grappled with his fierce battle in the distant realm of Westeros, within the King's Landing, in the throne room, at the council table for high officials, Robert donned his armor, a longsword dangling at his side, exuding the demeanor of a man ready for a hunt. Beside him stood Barristan Selmy, captain of the King's Guard, resplendent in gleaming white armor, draped in an even whiter cloak, tall and imposing, his blue eyes sparkling with intensity. Seven hells, the king bellowed. Eddard, why on earth did I appoint you as my hand? What has become of you lot? Have you all lost your tongues? I have heard that wretched woman has married a wildling, and soon she will bear a child, a dragon spawn who will one day seek vengeance against me. This was the first time since Eddard Stark had assumed the role of hand that Robert participated in a council meeting. To his astonishment, he arrived with great enthusiasm only to engage in a fierce quarrel with Eddard Stark, the Duke of Wind's Rest, Lord Lannister Baelish. The king's third brother and the Minister of Justice in the Baratheon court wore a charming smile, his attire exquisitely crafted, adorned with golden embroidery depicting the crowned stag of House Baratheon on his cuffs and collar. He was youthful and handsome, his eyes bright, yet humble. He sat there with an effortless ease, radiating a brilliance that seemed to concentrate solely upon him, akin to a lustrous pearl. In contrast, the fragrant and flamboyant Varys appeared almost comical beside him. When compared to Eddard Stark, Baelish resembled a precious gem, while Eddard appeared as a dull stone. Lord Baelish was unfazed by his brother Robert's thunderous outbursts. Rather, his smile grew even more enchanting, revealing a set of pearly white teeth reminiscent of fine jade. My Lord Eddard, why do you staunchly oppose Lord Varys's plan to assassinate Daenerys? She is but a child, Eddard Stark replied. Yet she is a Targaryen. And she has a brother, Viserys Targaryen. Now she is wed to the Dothraki horse Lord Khal Drogo, who commands an army of over 100,000 Dothraki riders. Master Pycelle spoke slowly, gradually taking a seat. He paused momentarily, suggesting that soon enough, Daenerys would bear dragons. But what if she gives birth to a daughter? Eddard retorted sternly. You should not entrust the fate of the realm to mere childbirth. It is utterly absurd, Master Pycelle remarked. What if she were to produce multiple dragons? My Lord Eddard, at that point, the Dragon Lords, accompanied by the Dothraki, would cross the sea and bring devastation to the Seven Kingdoms. Your momentary mercy could lead to boundless suffering for the people of the realm. So it is decided, a sharp blade and a man of courage. I demand the deaths of Daenerys and her foolish brother Viserys, Robert declared, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Daenerys is but 16, Eddard Stark coldly replied. Robert, are you truly frightened by a mere girl of 16? You wretched fool. Robert exploded with rage. Think of how your father met his end, you dolt. And consider your brother and your sister Lyanna. How many times was she violated after being abducted by Rhaegar? Once, twice, or perhaps hundreds of times. The king was agitated, his black beard bristling. I will slay every Targaryen spawn and desecrate their graves. Dothraki do not sail. Without their horses, they are nothing. Therefore, even if Daenerys were to bear a son, we need not fear. Should they dare to invade Westeros, we shall drive them back into the sea. Ensuring they do not return, Eddard Stark insisted stubbornly. If that is the case, rather than allowing thousands to perish in the future, let us end the lives of two now. Daenerys and Viserys, Varys said softly, his smooth, pudgy face adorned with a smile that made Eddard Stark feel profoundly repulsed. Eddard cast a glance at Master Pycelle. The veracity of this news remains uncertain. Do you truly believe a spider's word is worth the life of an innocent child? This is a brutish man, ready to bare his teeth and strike, all for a principle that is both naive and ludicrous in his mind. Varys chuckled, powder cascading from his face. My lord, this information was brought to me by my little birds from the narrow sea of Pentos. It is undoubtedly true. Moreover, it was conveyed through the governor of Pentos, Illyrio, who has established connections with the Dothraki. Additionally, one of the informants is none other than Ser Jorah Mormont. Eddard Stark scoffed. Is this merely a rumor from that traitor, devoid of noble honor, who is far removed from our lands? At this moment, Peter Baelish could no longer contain himself. My lord Hand, I must correct your error. Ser Jorah Mormont is a slaver, not a traitor. While this distinction may matter to the genteel nobility, he has merely been momentarily blinded by greed, and his crimes do not warrant death. Eddard Stark retorted. He traffics in slaves, betrays his family, and flees abroad. The knightly honor has long been discarded. I deeply regret not having personally severed his head from his shoulders back then. Chapter 16. Robert demands Daenerys' death, no more discussion. Robert bellowed, his voice like thunder. It is settled, they must die? Varys, send forth your little birds. Inform Jorah Mormont that he is to kill Daenerys and Viserys, and all his transgressions will be forgiven. As you wish, your grace, Varys replied softly. You shall not expect me to affix my seal to this. Eddard Stark replied coldly. He was as stubborn as a block of frozen stone from the north. Anyone who encountered him would be met with bloodshed and an icy chill. Seven hells. Robert groaned in anguish. You all must persuade him. Eddard, were you not my brother, I would take an axe to your head right now to see what lies within. Duke Renly quickly rose to mediate. His charisma was unmatched in King's Landing. Even the street urchins held him in high regard. Your grace, it seems quite clear now. And it is time for you to hunt. Ser Balon Swan, I implore you to assist our king in bringing back a great black bear. Lord Eddard Stark received no gratitude for this. He replied icily, Master Pycelle, what is your final opinion? I support his grace's decision. So do I, Varys said softly, raising a hand dusted with perfume. If Peter were present, I believe he would raise his hand as well. Thus I shall represent Peter. With a sardonic grin, Varys lifted his other hand. Eddard was momentarily taken aback with indignation. He need not ask Duke Renly, for he surely supported the king's decree. Eddard Stark cast a hopeful glance toward the fearless captain of the Kingsguard, Ser Balon Swan. Ser Balon, your unwavering loyalty and integrity are unparalleled. What is your opinion? The king glared angrily at his captain of guards. In those years, the captain fought valiantly, slaying many of Robert and Eddard's companions to defend the Targaryen royal family. When he was finally captured, the consensus was to execute him. Sir Roose Bolton of the North even advocated for him to be slowly flayed alive. However, Robert refused, believing it dishonorable to kill a man who had fought to the death for honor and loyalty. Robert pardoned Ser Ballistan and requested him to serve once more as his captain of the Kingsguard. Ballistan replied, I beg your pardon, your majesty, but this time, I stand with Lord Eddard Stark. Assassinating a 14-year-old girl, regardless of the circumstances, is not an act of honor. To hell with your honor. The king roared in fury as he strode toward the door, declaring, I shall no longer deliberate with you imbeciles. In any case, I will slay every last one of the Targaryen spawn. He paused at the threshold, and Ser Ballistan hurried to catch up. Your majesty, Eddard attempted to speak further, but was silenced by a wave of the king's hand. Silence. I fear I might lose my temper and cleave your head from your shoulders, impaling it upon the battlements. After King Robert and Ser Ballistan departed, the atmosphere in the council chamber grew oppressive and heavy. Varys spoke softly, my lord Eddard. Eddard shot Varys a disdainful glance, further disgusted by the wafting scent of perfume that clung to him. What sort of company did Robert keep? There was the trembling Grand Maester Pycelle, who seemed on the verge of expiring at any moment, the effeminate eunuch Varys who spoke in hushed tones, the dapper Chancellor Peter Baelish who spent excessive time on his finery, and the absentee master of coin, Peter Baelish, who had not attended court in days. King Robert himself rarely graced the council with his presence. Meanwhile, Ser Balistan, who was supposed to fulfill his duties as a key minister, had become merely the king's shadow, oblivious to the crucial matters of the realm. There was also Stannis Baratheon, the prime minister's assistant, who had vanished upon returning to Dragonstone. Eddard Stark felt a sense of impending collapse. Perhaps departing from King's Landing was the best course of action. Yet, how could he possibly leave now? The cause of Jon Arryn's death had been established. He succumbed to Tears of Lys, an invisible poison that kills without a trace. In Grand Maester Pycelle's chambers lay hundreds of glass vials, including Tears of Lys. Continue your deliberations, Eddard declared. Since the king has issued his command, my seal as hand of the king is likely no longer required. Ed ardently wished to rip off the king's hand from his right breast, hurl it to the ground, crush it beneath his feet, and ultimately discard it into the refuse. He abandoned Master Pycelle, the eunuch Varys, and Duke Lancel Lannister. His expression as heavy as the winter clouds of the north, and strode away. Chapter 17. A temporary ceasefire to tend to the wounded on the Dothraki Sea. Qin Wen entered a state of war frenzy, unleashing a staggering 100,000 rounds of ammunition. Even with only 110 bullets striking the enemy soldiers, the carnage would be unfathomable. The conflict raged throughout the day, and with the invincible Qin Wen on their side, their forces withstood the onslaught of 150,000 foes, breaking free from the encirclement. Not only that, but they also inflicted casualties upon nearly 50,000 of Morlocao's troops. Qin Wen alone had slaughtered thousands. The Gatling gun in his hands began to warp and melt from the intensity of fire. By the time the last bullet was expended, the Gatling gun, procured with 10,000 prestige points, was utterly rendered inoperative. This war had led to mutual devastation, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. Qin Wen's army of 70,000 was reduced to merely 50,000, with 20,000 ordinary cavalry perishing on the battlefield. However, those who survived were the elite of the elite. And under the baptism of war, the remaining 50,000 soldiers would transform into the most formidable roaring warriors. On the side of Morlocao, only 100,000 troops remained. And significantly, over 10,000 of his roaring warriors had fallen. These unfortunate souls had accompanied Arzhan and his band to encircle Qin Wen, only to be utterly bewildered by the onslaught of his Gatling gun. These unarmored cavalrymen were reduced to mere moving targets in the face of modern firearms, offering no resistance whatsoever, and were shattered into a cloud of blood and flesh, leaving no trace behind. The enemy was overwhelming in numbers, densely packed without a shred of space, allowing Qin Wen's Gatling gun to strike true with every shot, requiring no aim at all. It mowed down wave after wave as if reaping wheat. Suddenly, a mournful horn resounded across the battlefield, signaling both sides to temporarily retreat. The soldiers, once locked in fierce combat, withdrew like a receding tide. The Morlocao coalition retreated several kilometers before establishing a camp, maintaining a distant standoff with Qin Wen's forces. To expect them to abandon their cause was folly. Both sides were fervently intent on annihilating one another. This grand battle was destined to leave only one side standing. The temporary withdrawal served merely to allow the soldiers to recuperate and regain their strength. With the separation of the vast armies, the battlefield was soon littered with countless mangled corpses. The bodies of fallen soldiers, trampled by warhorses and slashed by weapons, were beyond recognition, with some reduced to mere puddles of flesh. There are also those who, against all odds, have miraculously survived, yet are grievously wounded. They are either missing limbs or have lost their noses, eyes, and ears. Some have had half of their scalps severed by the curved blades of the Dothraki. With the medical capabilities in the realm of Game of Thrones, such severely injured soldiers have little hope of survival due to the extent of their injuries. Furthermore, the healers of this era do not possess the knowledge to properly disinfect wounds, making it all too easy for the injured to succumb to chills and infections. Once wounded, they must rely solely on their own immune systems, and many perish within days, either from tetanus or by witnessing their own bodies decay. Thus, when faced with these grievously injured soldiers, the Dothraki's approach is straightforward. They sever the heads of the fallen, allowing them to find release, and ultimately, their steeds are consigned to the flames alongside them. Within the tent of the Khal Drogo tribe, Qin Wen is attending to the wounded. specifically his blood-sworn warrior Kaya and several others. Kaya sustained his injuries while saving Qin Wen. The enemy was overwhelming, and it was clear that Qin Wen alone could not fend off the relentless cavalry charging towards him. 7 or 8 horsemen managed to evade the gunfire and bore down upon Qin Wen. In that critical moment, Kaya stepped forward, sacrificing himself to slay all 7 adversaries. Yet his bravery left him teetering on the brink of death. Such a loyal subordinate cannot be allowed to perish, Qin Wen vowed. Kaya, you saved my life. I, Khal Drogo, shall not allow you to die so easily. It is but a wound to the abdomen. I will ensure your recovery, he solemnly declared to the frail Kaya, who lay upon a fur chair. Kaya's condition was dire. His abdomen was laid open, exposing his intestines and organs, and he had lost a significant amount of blood. Typically, such wounds are fatal. The accompanying witch healer prepared to administer poppy milk to Kaya, intending to provide a temporary reprieve from his excruciating pain. However, Qin Wen's fury erupted as he forcefully knocked the poppy milk from her hands, bellowing, "Get away from me! Do you wish to kill him?" Startled by Qin Wen's wrath, the witch healer immediately knelt, trembling in fear. Lord Khal, please do not slay me," she implored, bewildered by his actions. In the past, it had been customary for their healers to treat soldiers' wounds in this manner. The other warriors present, including Qin Wen's remaining blood-sworn guards, Casso and Kaku, were equally perplexed. "Khal, are you truly abandoning Kaya's treatment? Fools! The poppy milk is a narcotic, highly addictive, and induces hallucinations. It serves no purpose in healing. It merely numbs the injured senses, hastening Kaya's demise," Qin Wen admonished. "Immediately summon someone to boil a pot of hot water for Kaya's wound cleansing, and prepare several clean knives and needles for stitching. I have use for them." Chapter 18. The Midnight Assassination Operation. As the night deepened, the camp was intermittently filled with the anguished cries of injured soldiers unable to suppress their screams. In this era, anesthesia was non-existent. The only recourse was to consume poppy milk, which merely dulled the senses temporarily and came with severe side effects, including hallucinations and addiction. Utilizing the antiseptic methods he had learned on Earth, Qin Wen successfully tended to Kaya's wounds and stitched up the massive gash on his abdomen. Despite his efforts, Kaya fell into a temporary state of unconsciousness due to excessive blood loss. With no other option, Qin Wen slit his own wrist, feeding his blood to Kaya. His blood was not ordinary. It had been enhanced by a super soldier serum, granting it formidable regenerative properties. Having done all he could, Kaya's survival now rested solely in his hands. After completing the task, Qin Wen addressed the others. "You must return to the camp immediately and assist the other brothers with their wounds, just as I did. Remember to disinfect with hot water." "Understood." The warriors nodded before retreating. The Dothraki despised darkness, just as they loathed the sea. Thus, on the night plains, no Dothraki chose to continue fighting. They unanimously opted for a temporary ceasefire. However, Qin Wen would not let this rare opportunity slip away. It serves you right, Morro. Despite your self-proclaimed prowess as a Dothraki demon, you are, at the end of the day, merely a clever native. In terms of strategy and tactics, how could you possibly compare to the wisdom of our ancient Chinese ancestors?" A triumphant smile spread across Qin Wen's face as he laughed heartily. He had long since devised a plan, taking into account the Dothraki's habits, and was prepared for the next wave of attack. Soon enough, Casso and Kaku, the Bloodsworn, entered. "Blood of my blood, we have made the necessary arrangements. We have selected 3,000 of the most elite warriors from the 30,000 roars of warriors, and they are already assembled outside the tent, ready to depart at your command." "Excellent. The success of this battle rests upon this moment. As long as we infiltrate Morro's camp and eliminate all their warriors, we can then coordinate with the remaining soldiers to annihilate Morro Karasa and dominate the Dothraki Sea. O great blood of my blood, we shall swear to follow in your footsteps unto death." Casso and Kaku knelt on one knee in reverence. "Let us move," Qin Wen proclaimed, leading the 3,000 elite warriors stealthily toward Morro Karasa's encampment under the cover of darkness. Meanwhile, the tens of thousands of soldiers in Qin Wen's camp were already prepared, ready to respond the moment they received the signal from him. The two camps were not far apart, less than 10 kilometers. With their speed, they could reach their destination in under half an hour. 3,000 souls, like phantoms, approached in utter silence, unnoticed by anyone. This was largely due to the Dothraki's aversion to armor. Each warrior bore his chest and shoulders bare, armed only with curved blades and shields. Leading the way was Qin Wen, who carried a massive shield that weighed 100 pounds, yet in his grasp it seemed weightless, as light as cotton. This shield was crafted for him by the governor of Illyrio and delivered after the day's battle had concluded. With this impenetrable shield, Qin Wen felt invincible. No number of soldiers could thwart him. The camp of Morro was eerily quiet. After a day of fierce combat, both sides were utterly fatigued. Most Dothraki soldiers were fast asleep, leaving only a few drowsy sentinels to watch over the dark, empty expanse before them. The Dothraki seas at night were perilous, as fierce beasts, concealed amidst the tall grass during the day, emerged to hunt. These creatures favored horses and humans, rendering the Dothraki reluctant to venture out after dusk. Astute as he was, Morro did not anticipate that Drogo would dare to launch a night raid. Thus his camp's defenses were quite lax. Naturally, Morro's own royal tent was heavily fortified, surrounded by 100,000 troops. The towering tent remained brightly lit, guarded by dozens of elite warriors, ensuring that no one could approach to assassinate him. This highlights Morro's profound paranoia and fear of death, which had allowed him to maintain control over Karassa for far longer than other Khals. Unfortunately for him, he was now faced with Qin Wen. The 3,000 infiltrators entered Morro's camp with remarkable stealth, hardly disturbing anyone. Even when a few sentinels did catch sight of them, they were swiftly dealt with. The vastness of the encampment made it impossible to detect the presence of 3,000 men, especially since they all wore similar attire, making them even less distinguishable in the dark. By the time Qin Wen and his men reached the heart of the camp, Morro's forces remained oblivious. You are tasked with assassinating Morro's scouts. Kill as many as you can. I will confront Morro in his royal tent. We shall move in unison and signal our main army with fire when the time is right. Do you understand? Qin Wen commanded his 3,000 elite soldiers. These men were not only skilled warriors, but also possessed greater intellect than the average Dothraki. Qin Wen intended to train them specifically as master assassins and special operatives. Yes, Khal. The 3,000 replied in unison in Dothraki. Excellent. Commence the operation. Thus began a silent massacre. 3,000 elite warriors advanced toward the camp of Morro, seeking out the tents of those commanding the army, initiating a clandestine assassination. Many of the foes were still ensconced in slumber when they lost their heads. In less than a minute, the camp was transformed into a veritable river of blood, with headless corpses strewn about in abundance. At this moment, Qin Wen approached the royal tent of Morro, solitary yet undeterred. Despite the presence of vigilant guards stationed outside, he effortlessly infiltrated the interior. Morro lay unsuspectingly upon his bed, deep in sleep, surrounded by several pale-skinned, beautiful slave girls, gifts bestowed upon him by governors from the Free Trade Federation. Any powerful Khalasar tribe leader from the Dothraki Sea was not to be trifled with. The governors of the Free Trade Federation needed to cultivate favorable relations with these Khal, presenting gifts to stave off potential assaults on their cities. Little did Morro anticipate that Qin Wen would appear before him in the dead of night, intruding upon his pleasant dreams. What a fool, to lack even this basic level of vigilance, and yet still dare to pride himself as a Dothraki demon. Qin Wen approached with a sinister grin, a massive curved blade appearing in his hand, and he swiftly severed Morro's head from his shoulders. With a sickening thud, Morro's braided head tumbled to the ground, a gushing fountain of blood staining the tent crimson. Known for his decisive nature, Qin Wen uttered not a word, simply ending Morro's life with brutal efficiency. Poor Morro, caught unawares in the depths of his dreams, lost his life in the most humiliating manner. Yet, a sound did escape during the act. The killing of Morro had not gone unnoticed. Outside the tent, several bloodbound guards sensed the disturbance and rushed in. Upon witnessing Qin Wen's silhouette, they were immediately engulfed by a feral desire for vengeance. Cursed be it! Someone has intruded upon our camp. Where's my blood? The guards detected the overwhelming scent of blood wafting from within the tent. Even more terrifying was the sight of Morro's head lying on the ground, already severed. Ah, that is the head of my blood. Morro has been slain by this man. Cursed be you! You are Zhaogakao. The bloodbound guards roared in fury. This was catastrophic news. Their Kao had been murdered. As sworn protectors and closest brethren of Morro, they were compelled to avenge him. Kill him, avenge Morro. Brothers, attack. Zhaoga, you shall die. Without hesitation, the guards drew their curved blades and charged at Qin Wen, their eyes aflame with fury, channeling all their strength in a relentless pursuit of vengeance. With Morro's death, they were resolved to embrace their own demise rather than live in dishonor. Humph. Do you truly believe that you can impede me? Qin Wen scoffed, flinging the shield in his grasp with a forceful motion. Thunderous sounds erupted as the immense power unleashed sent the heavy shield, weighing over 100 pounds, hurtling through the air at an astonishing speed. colliding directly with the chest of the foremost Blood Alliance warrior. The unfortunate soldier was struck as if by a speeding automobile, his chest caving in, bones shattering almost entirely, nearly cleaving him in two. He was flung into the air, spewing blood and fragments of his innards mid-flight, and by the time he crashed to the ground, he was already devoid of life. Qin Wen's strike was terrifyingly potent. It is essential to note that his physical prowess now surpassed that of Captain America. Qin Wen could effortlessly lift several tons. A mere shield weighing about 100 pounds was trivial for him, and he could even hurl a warhorse several meters with sheer brute strength. After instantly dispatching one Blood Alliance warrior, Qin Wen lunged into the fray, crashing into two more like a rampaging bull. The colossal impact sent them sprawling, both sustaining grievous injuries, their shoulder blades crushed under the force. With a swift turn, he spun his curved blade in a full 360 degrees. The dull sounds of slicing echoed as two more Blood Alliance warriors lost their heads, collapsing lifelessly to the ground. In less than 10 seconds, 5 Blood Alliance soldiers were gravely wounded and powerless to resist. Like a harbinger of death, Qin Wen approached the last 2 fallen warriors, mercifully ending their lives before calmly exiting the tent. Casting a glance around the still and serene camp, a cold smile crept across Qin Wen's lips as he kicked over a nearby fire pit, the charcoal spilling onto the royal tent of Morro. In an instant, flames ignited, rapidly spreading throughout the fabric. The roaring inferno surged skyward, visible from several kilometers away. The 3,000 elite roaring warriors scattered around the camp received the signal and, emulating Qin Wen, began to set fire to the encampment, transforming it into a blazing sea. The previously slumbering Dothraki finally awakened to the chaos. Some perished in their sleep from the flames, while others cried out in agony as they were engulfed. The atmosphere was rife with turmoil and despair, filled with wails and cries. More significantly, the warriors of Qin Wen's camp, who had been poised for action, recognized the agreed signal, understanding that Cao had succeeded. Qin Wen's Blood Alliance warrior, Queso, mounted on horseback, drew his curved blade, shouting to the heavens, "Brothers, my blood has successfully slain Morro. Now it is our turn to take the stage. Kill every last one of Morro's soldiers. Seize their steeds and women. Kill, kill, kill." The ground trembled with the echoes of their fervor. Nearly 50,000 cavalrymen brandished their curved sabers, letting out a fierce roar towards the heavens before charging forth, intent on annihilating Morro's encampment. Chapter 20. The decision of Jorah Mormont. This grand conflict, which engulfed 200,000 souls, culminated in a resounding defeat for Morro's forces after a relentless day and night of battle. Despite commanding a formidable army of 150,000 and rallying several smaller Karasa tribes, Morro found himself decimated by Qin Wen and his warriors, who reduced his numbers to less than 70,000. The casualties exceeded half of his troops, with an additional 20,000 having gone missing during the nighttime raid, many of whom fled under the cover of darkness, predominantly from the smaller tribes. In the end, fewer than 50,000 were left to be captured by Qin Wen. Qin Wen's losses were not insignificant either. He had initially set out with 100,000 troops, and now only 40,000 remained, marking a considerable toll. However, the defeat of Morro allowed him to annex his tribe and seize all his possessions, plus the 5,000 captives. His total fighting force could once again reach 100,000. Moreover, with Morro's demise, no other Karasa tribe in the Dothraki Sea could stand against him. The remaining tribes were too feeble to resist Qin Wen's formidable army. This was a monumental victory. As dawn broke, the aftermath of a night filled with slaughter left the grass strewn with countless corpses, while numerous soldiers busied themselves with clearing the battlefield and tending to the wounded. A multitude of captives were disarmed and gathered together, their faces betraying palpable fear. In Dothraki culture, the status of a slave is the lowest, subject to arbitrary violence and death. These captives, barring unforeseen circumstances, were destined to become slaves, a fate that instilled dread in their hearts. Riding amidst the throng, Qin Wen was flanked by 3,000 roaring warriors. As his soldiers knelt on one knee in reverence, they welcomed their great call. "Casso, convey to the captives that if they wish to join us, I shall overlook their past and spare them from slavery, provided they take up arms anew to help me conquer the entire Dothraki Sea. Additionally, disperse these captives. Integrate a portion into our ranks while leaving the remainder to observe." Qin Wen instructed as he walked alongside Casso. "Yes, blood of my blood." Casso nodded before turning to relay the orders to the captives. Following this battle, Qin Wen's prestige within the army became unparalleled. Every warrior understood that it was Khal Drogo who had personally infiltrated the enemy camp, slain Morro, and led his men against overwhelming odds to secure victory. Qin Wen could sense his reputation soaring without needing to glance around. At last, I have taken the first step towards supremacy, Qin Wen thought, filled with satisfaction. The vast expanse of the grassland would soon be under his command. As 100,000 troops gathered, ready for Qin Wen's sweeping conquest of the entire Dothraki Sea. As long as he unifies the Dothraki people, he will be able to continuously augment his forces, and it will not be merely an army of 100,000, or even 200 or 300,000, but potentially 1,000,000 strong. Within the Khalasar of Drogo, Viserys hurriedly entered the tent, his face alight with excitement as he exclaimed to Ser Mormont. "Guess what splendid news I brought back?" Ser Mormont raised his eyelids slightly and replied in a calm tone, "Your Grace, has Khal Drogo triumphed?" Viserys leapt with exuberance, practically dancing with joy. "Indeed, you are truly astute, Ser Jorah. I received this remarkable news from a Dothraki. Drogo has indeed vanquished Morro. It is said that a total of 200,000 warriors were involved. My heavens, these savages truly know how to fight." The battle raged for a day and a night, culminating in Drogo breaking the traditional taboo of the Dothraki by marching at night and assassinating Morro, securing a resounding victory. They are now on their way back in triumph. Ser Mormont nodded. He understood that this might be his final opportunity. The missive from King's Landing had reached him mere moments after Drogo set forth to confront Morro. In that letter, King Robert Baratheon coldly informed Mormont that if he were to eliminate Viserys and Daenerys, the last of House Targaryen, he would be exonerated and welcomed back to Westeros with honors. Mormont admitted he was tempted. Years ago, in a bid to earn money and please his wife, he had taken the risk of engaging in the slave trade, only to be pursued relentlessly by Eddard Stark, forcing him to flee Westeros in haste. During his years of wandering in Essos, he had found himself without a home, his wife having left him, which had plunged him into deep despair. The prospect of returning to Westeros was one he was loath to forsake. Once Drogo returned, he would have no opportunity to act, to kill them and return to Westeros. Mormont resolved firmly. Chapter 21. The Death of Jorah Mormont. Daenerys was deeply concerned for Drogo's safety. Ever since he had departed, she had been silently praying to the new gods for his safe return. Should Drogo perish, she, as a Khaleesi, would be sent to the Holy City to live out her days in solitude alongside other widowed Khaleesis. For Daenerys, that would be akin to hell. Fortunately, her captain of the guard, Hago, had just returned with splendid news. Khal Drogo had returned victorious, and the House of Morro had been annihilated. Thank the gods. It is wonderful that Drogo has returned alive. I must go welcome him. Overjoyed, Daenerys dashed from the tent and mounted the small mare Drogo had given her. She could not bear to remain there for another moment. "Khaleesi, please slow down," her guards called out, hastily following after her. Daenerys Targaryen held the safety of Khal Drogo in utmost regard. Should anything befall him, the lives of those around him would be forfeit. Meanwhile, Daenerys, in a state of euphoric delirium, galloped along the path of her return, oblivious to the guards trailing behind her. Unexpectedly, she encountered her brother Viserys and Ser Mormont along the way. "Your Highness," Ser Mormont greeted her with a noble bow, his movements impeccable. "Where are you headed?" "Daenerys?" Viserys inquired, his gaze filled with jealousy as he beheld his sister. Regret washed over him for having entrusted his sister to that barbarian. For only a true dragon deserved a true dragon. Undoubtedly, Viserys considered himself the sole heir of the Targaryen lineage. He yearned to follow in the footsteps of his ancestors and wed his sister. "Viserys, I am going to welcome Drogo. Will you join us?" Though Daenerys was somewhat wary of her brother's demeanor, her kind nature prevented her from dwelling on it. "Humph, have you grown restless after just 2 days apart? Is that why you are so eager to be with that savage?" Viserys' venomous words cut through the air. Fury ignited within Daenerys, her cheeks flushed with indignation. "Viserys, how can you speak to me in such a manner? Am I not speaking the truth? You've scarcely married Khal Drogo, and you already see yourself as his woman. Today, I shall show you the consequences of awakening the wrath of a sleeping dragon." Viserys could only reclaim his sense of power in Daenerys' presence. He dismounted and seized her forcefully, attempting to pull her down from her steed. "What are you doing? Let me down," Daenerys protested, her voice rising in defiance. Viserys' anger surged. Ever since Daenerys' marriage to Drogo, she seemed increasingly unafraid of him, even daring to glare and shout. This filled him with humiliation. "You are the last of the Targaryen bloodline. You must bear true dragon heirs, not offspring of a horse. My husband is Khal Drogo, and we have already wed according to Targaryen customs, with the gods as our witnesses. Even if you are his wife, you have a duty to produce pure Targaryen heirs. Had it not been for your late birth, Rhaegar would not have first wed the Martell, and then fallen for a dire wolf. Wolves, lions, and horses are but prey for dragons. Horses do not deserve dragons, yet he promised me 1,000 horsemen. Thus, I permitted you to be ridden by him. Release me. I carry Khal Drogo's child, and if he learns you dare to touch me, he will surely kill you. Daenerys warned fiercely. I am aware, hence, I must act before he returns. Viserys growled, his grip tightening on Daenerys, his eyes ablaze. He ascended the steps, on the verge of entering a chamber. Ser Mormont, will you merely stand by and watch my brother commit folly? Daenerys cried out. Jorah Mormont lowered his head, saying, I apologize, your highness. His Majesty Viserys speaks the truth. You are indeed descendants of the true dragon, and only in this way can the bloodline remain pure. Huh, excellent. Ser Mormont, you truly are a loyal hound. Once I reclaim the throne, I shall restore your noble honor. Viserys laughed heartily as he tugged Daenerys deeper into the thicket, clearly pleased by Jorah Mormont's indifference. Thank you, your majesty. Jorah Mormont bowed respectfully, though no one perceived the murderous intent lurking in his gaze. The area was desolate, backed by a small hill, with weeds towering over a person's height. Any activities within this setting would go unnoticed. As long as Viserys remained distracted by his torment of Daenerys, Jorah was confident he could swiftly sever his head alongside Daenerys' and deliver them back to King's Landing. Fool, let me grant you a moment of pleasure before your demise, Jorah thought, a cold smile forming at the corner of his mouth as he slowly turned away. However, in that instant of turning, a massive Dothraki curved blade cleaved through his neck, akin to splitting open a watermelon. With a sickening thud, his head surged into the air, accompanied by a torrent of blood, as his lifeless body collapsed to the ground. Jorah Mormont's eyes widened in shock. The last visage he beheld was a familiar face radiating malevolence. Chapter 22. Viserys is burned alive. Viserys remained oblivious to the scene of Jorah Mormont losing his head, his mind consumed with nefarious thoughts. Yet, Daenerys, who was being forcibly dragged and resisted, witnessed the event and glimpsed a figure she longed for. Drogon. Her cry startled Viserys to the brink of terror. What nonsense are you uttering? That scoundrel is miles away. How could he possibly be here? Do not struggle. Today, no one. Viserys turned to Daenerys with a sinister expression, ready to unleash his fury. But before he could finish, a tall figure stood before him. Khal Drogo. You. How could you be here? Viserys was instantly paralyzed with fear, releasing Daenerys' hand as he gazed up at Khal Drogo, dread etched across his face. I warned you long ago not to touch my Dany, not even a strand of her hair. Khal Drogo advanced, wielding a colossal Dothraki curved blade, inching closer to Viserys. I am sorry. I did not. Khal Drogo, please allow me to explain. Viserys raised his hands in surrender, his face a mask of terror as he retreated. Drogon, do not believe his deceit. Viserys intended to torment me. Daenerys freed herself from Viserys' grasp and rushed to Khal Drogo's side, breathless with indignation. Do not worry, my Khaleesi. Today he is as good as dead. Khal Drogo reassured her gently, placing a tender kiss upon Daenerys' forehead. Viserys' face was etched with despair. Drogo, you cannot betray our pact. You promised to aid me in reclaiming my throne. How can you kill me? Qin Wen sneered. A pact? Do you truly believe I would honor such a thing? If you dare to plot against Daenerys, I shall ensure your demise is without a grave. Viserys, utterly shattered, succumbed to terror. With a horrified scream, he fled into the underbrush, desperate to escape the merciless demon before him. Yet, before he could make much headway, a searing pain erupted from his lower body, causing him to lose his balance and collapse to the ground. In shock, he turned to gaze upon his legs, only to witness a horrific sight. His limbs had been severed at the knees by a Dothraki scimitar. Blood gushed forth, staining the grass of vivid crimson. My legs. They've been severed. I am dying. Someone please help me. I was wrong. Daenerys, I am your brother. We are all we have in this world. Please, save me. I do not wish to die. Viserys wept bitterly, the agony overwhelming him, plunging him into a chasm of despair. Yet Daenerys remained stoic, her expression devoid of emotion as she observed her brother's plight. She had long since lost hope in him. He was no longer the brother who would protect and cherish her. He had transformed into a proud, foolish, and craven creature, ensnared in delusions of restoring the Targaryen legacy. I've heard that true dragons fear not the flames. I shall put that to the test. If the fire does not consume you, I shall spare your life. Qin Wen remarked coldly, a smirk gracing his lips. He summoned a torch and cast it upon Viserys' garments. The silk ignited instantly, flames roaring to life. What are you doing? Viserys shouted, springing to his feet and frantically attempting to extinguish the fire. The flames clung tenaciously, the silk fabric proving highly flammable. "Save me, Daenerys. Please," he cried out in desperation. But the fire, like a serpentine inferno, swiftly ascended his silver hair, igniting a wail of agony from his lips. "How pitiful. It seems you are not of true dragon blood," Qin Wen observed, shaking his head. "I will kill you." Viserys seethed, fury boiling within him. "Then you must first extinguish the flames. Otherwise, you shall be consumed by them. I will not accept this. I am a true dragon. I cannot die. You lowly savages cannot kill me." Viserys raged, engulfed by the roaring flames, becoming a living torch. The crackling sounds of his body succumbing to the fire echoed as he struggled forward, dragging his maimed form a few steps further. Consumed by a profound sense of bitterness and despair before succumbing to the darkness. Daenerys witnessed this scene with her own eyes, yet her heart remained utterly unperturbed. At some point, her spirit had hardened. "Viserys, you no longer possess the authority to command me to undertake any task against my will, from this moment forward, and for all eternity. For I am a dragon," Daenerys coldly declared as she gazed upon the corpse at her feet. A thunderous realization struck her. Ever since her pregnancy began, she had frequently dreamt of dragons and flames. These visions became increasingly vivid and recurrent, and she sensed an uncanny immunity to fire and scalding water. She had long been perplexed by the significance of these dreams and why. Upon placing her finger in the flame of a candle, she felt only a gentle warmth, untouched by harm. Viserys' dying words suddenly lifted the veil of confusion that shrouded her heart, illuminating the truth behind her numerous dreams of dragons and fire, as well as her inexplicable affinity for flames. It was because she was a dragon. "I am a dragon. I fear no fire. I am drawn to the flames. And the flames are drawn to me, for I am the true heir of the dragon. The Targaryen lineage of true dragons, the awakening of the dragon blood, has always transcended gender.